The stars were quiet that night. Captain sat alone on the bridge of her ship, the UES Ironclad. She was drinking cold coffee and watching the darkness of space through the main window. Her ship was on patrol duty along the outer rim, the edge of human territory. Nothing exciting ever happened here, just empty space and distant stars. Was 42 years old. She had gray streaks in her black hair and old scars on her hands. She had fought in the colony wars when she was young. She had survived the Titan collapse when an entire space station fell apart and killed 3,000 people. She was one of only 80 survivors. Those memories never left her. They lived in her bones like cold metal. The Ironclad was a destroyer-class warship. It was not the biggest ship in the human fleet, but it was fast and strong. The crew was small, only 120 people, but they were good at their jobs. They trusted with their lives. She tried every day to be worthy of that trust. Lieutenant walked onto the bridge. He was the communications officer, a young man with sharp eyes and quick fingers. He was only 26 years old, but he was one of the best signal readers in the fleet. He could find a whisper in a storm of noise. "Captain," he said. His voice was strange. Looked at him and saw something in his face. It was not fear exactly. It was something worse. It was the look of someone who had heard something terrible. "What is it?" asked. Walked to his console and pressed some buttons. The main screen flickered. Static filled the bridge, then a sound came through. It was a voice, not human. The words were in the universal trade language that all species used. "Please, anyone," they came from the dark. "They are eating us alive, please." The message repeated. It was broken and weak. Parts of it were missing, eaten by solar interference. But those words were clear. "They are eating us alive." Felt something cold move through her chest. She had heard distress signals before. She had answered many of them. But something about this one was different. The fear in that alien voice was pure. It was the fear of prey that knows the predator is coming. "Where is it coming from?" asked. Worked his console. "The cluster, Captain, deep inside space." The bridge went quiet. Everyone knew about They were one of the oldest civilizations in the galaxy. They had beautiful ships and advanced technology. They also hated humans. They called humanity the Death World apes. They thought humans were dangerous animals who should be kept away from civilized species. 30 years ago, they had closed their borders. No human ship was allowed in their territory. The punishment for crossing was death. "The signal is 18 cycles old," continued. "It took that long to reach us. The ship is called the Singing Dawn. It is a trade vessel, civilian." Stood up from her chair. She walked to the main window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there in forbidden space, people were dying. Maybe they were already dead. 18 days was a long time. "How far is it?" she asked. 6 days at maximum speed. But Captain, if we cross the border, the will. "I know what the will do." His voice was flat and hard. "I also know what is happening to those people on that ship." She thought about the voice in the message. It was not human, but it was still a person. It was still someone who felt pain and fear. Someone who called for help in the darkness and heard nothing back. Humans came from Earth, a death world. That meant their home planet was more dangerous than most. Earth had predators everywhere. It had poison and disease and natural disasters. Humans evolved to survive all of it. They learned to run and fight and never give up. They learned to hunt in groups and protect their own. But they also learned something else. They learned what it felt like to be prey. They knew the terror of being hunted. And because they knew that feeling, they could not ignore it when they heard it in another voice. "Get me Fleet Command," said, "and contact the Tempest and Black Mountain. Tell them to prepare for immediate departure." Hesitated. "Captain, this could start a war. They have powerful allies if we violate their space." "Someone out there is being eaten alive," Lieutenant turned to face him. Her eyes were cold and steady. "I do not care about politics. I do not care about treaties. I care about the fact that people are dying and we can hear them screaming." She walked back to her captain's chair and sat down. The crew watched her in silence. They knew that look on her face. They had seen it before in battle when the odds were bad and the situation was worse. It was the look of a human who had made a decision and would not change her mind. "Set course for the cluster," ordered. "Maximum speed." The ironclad turned in the darkness of space. Its engines glowed bright blue as they powered up. Behind it, two more ships followed. The Tempest and the Black Mountain, sister destroyers with crews just as determined. Three small ships, heading into forbidden territory, chasing a ghost signal that was already 18 days old. Everyone knew it was probably too late. Everyone knew they might find nothing but bodies and silence. But they went anyway. Because humans always answered when someone screamed for help. It was in their blood. It was in their bones. It was the one thing that made them dangerous in a way that other species could never understand. They did not just fight for themselves. They fought for anyone who needed them. And someone out there needed them now. The stars watched in silence as the three human ships disappeared into the dark. The hunt had begun. The singing dawn was dead when they found her. The ship floated in empty space like a broken toy. Its lights were dark. Its engines were cold. Large holes covered its hull, burned through by weapons fire. Pieces of metal and glass drifted around it like snow. Captain stood on the bridge of the ironclad and looked at the ruined vessel on her screen. She had seen destroyed ships before. She had seen the aftermath of battles and accidents. But this was different. This ship had not been destroyed in a fight. It had been opened like a box. Someone had cut into it with care and purpose. "No life signs," reported Sergeant. She was the leader of the Marine squad, a woman with short hair and strong arms. She had been a soldier for 15 years and had seen many terrible things. Her voice was calm, but her hands were tight on her weapon. "The ship is completely dead, Captain." "We are going aboard," said. "Full protocol. I want everyone armed and ready." The boarding team crossed the gap between ships in small shuttles. Chief Medical Officer led the first group. She was a doctor, not a fighter, but she had trained for situations like this. Her job was to document what they found and look for survivors. She did not expect to find any. The airlock opened with a hiss of old air. The smell hit them first. It was sweet and rotten, the smell of death that had been waiting in the dark. Steam turned on their lights and stepped into the corridor. The walls were painted with dried blood. It was violet in color, the blood of the species. It was everywhere, on the floor, on the ceiling, on the doors that led to other parts of the ship. Someone had walked through this blood while it was still wet. There were footprints, but they were not feet. They were something else, something with claws. "Spread out," ordered. "Document everything, touch nothing." They moved through the ship like ghosts. Every room told the same story. They had tried to run. They had tried to hide. They had tried to fight with tools and chairs and their bare hands. None of it had worked. The attackers had found them all. There were beautiful creatures. They had 4 arms and smooth skin that glowed with soft light. They evolved on a paradise world with no predators. They never learned to fight because they never needed to. They were artists and traders and scientists. They built wonderful things and shared them with the galaxy. They had no idea how to survive when monsters came for them. Found the first body in the cargo hold. It was a merchant, an older male based on his markings. His body had been cut open with surgical care. His organs were missing. His limbs had been separated at the joints and stacked neatly beside him. "This was not anger," said into her recorder. "This was not frenzy. This was farming. They were harvesting these people like crops." More bodies followed, 43 in total. Men and women and children, families who had been traveling together, traders who had been moving goods between worlds. All of them had been processed. All of them had been taken apart. Commander was the tactical officer. He was older than most of the crew, a quiet man who spoke only when necessary. He found the bridge and began to examine the ship's damaged computers. The attackers had destroyed most of the data, but they had left something behind. A symbol was burned into the deck plating. It was a mark, a signature. "Captain," said over the communication link, "you need to see this." Crossed to the singing dawn and made her way to the bridge. She stepped over broken furniture and dried blood and the places where people had died fighting. When she reached, he pointed to the symbol on the floor. It was a circle with 3 curved lines inside it. The lines looked like claws or teeth. Had seen this symbol before, but only in old files and historical records. It belonged to a species that most people thought was extinct. "The collective," she said. Nodded slowly. "The energy signatures match. The hull damage is consistent with their weapons. The way the bodies were processed fits their feeding patterns." There were nightmares from ancient history. They were a swarm species, billions of creatures that moved together like a single organism. They did not build or create. They consumed. Every few centuries they would appear from the dark edges of space, attack everything in their path, and then vanish again. The last recorded attack was 400 years ago. Everyone thought they were gone forever. They were wrong. Looked at the bodies around her. She looked at the blood on the walls and the careful cuts on the dead. They had done this for food. To them, they were not people. They were not artists or families or dreamers. They were meat. Something cold and hard settled in his chest. It was not sadness. It was not fear. It was something older and darker. It was the feeling that humans learned on their death world in the long nights when predators circled their camps. It was the feeling that came before the hunt. "Can you track them?" she asked. Worked the damaged console. They left a trail, energy residue and debris. They headed deeper into the cluster. "If we follow now, we might be able to find their base." Sergeant spoke up from the doorway. "Captain, we have 3 destroyers. If they have a fleet, they could have hundreds of ships. We cannot fight them alone." "I know," said. She looked one more time at the dead around her. She made herself remember their faces. She made herself feel the weight of what had been done to them. "We are not going to fight them. Not yet. We are going to follow them. We are going to find where they live. And then we are going to make sure they never do this again." She turned and walked back toward the airlock. Her crew followed in silence. They understood. They were not going home. They were going hunting. The dead of the singing dawn deserved that much. And the living of the galaxy deserved to be safe from the monsters in the dark. 6 weeks passed in the darkness of space. Captain and her 3 ships followed the like shadows. They stayed far behind, just close enough to track the energy trail. Their engines ran quiet. Their weapons stayed cold. They watched and waited and learned. The raiding party had 12 ships. They were ugly vessels, built from stolen parts and covered with strange growths. They moved together like fish in a school, always turning at the same time, always knowing where the others were. They did not communicate with radio or light. They shared thoughts through some connection that humans did not understand. On the 8th day, they attacked a mining outpost. The human ships watched from a safe distance as the monsters cut through the station's defenses in minutes. The miners tried to fight back with old weapons and desperate courage. It did not matter. They were too fast, too many, too hungry. Lieutenant stood at his console with his hands shaking. "Captain, we can help them. We can reach the station in 20 minutes. We can save some of them." "No," said. Her voice was flat and cold. "But they are dying." "I know." Did not look away from the screen. She watched as the ships attached themselves to the station like parasites. She watched as the life signs inside began to disappear one by one. "If we attack now, we kill 12 ships. Maybe we save 100 people. Maybe we lose a ship and die ourselves. And the rest of the go on. They find new hunting grounds. They kill thousands more." Was silent. His eyes were wet, but he understood. He hated it, but he understood. "We are not here to win a battle," continued. "We are here to win a war. We need to find their home. We need to know how many there are and where they sleep. Then we come back with enough fire to burn them all. On the 23rd day, they attacked again. This time it was a refugee convoy, 30 small ships carrying families who were running from a plague on their home world. They had no weapons. They had no soldiers. They were just people looking for a safe place to live. They took them all. Sergeant came to his quarters that night. The captain was sitting alone in the dark, looking at nothing. Had known for 10 years. She had never seen her look so tired. "The crew is talking," said. "They think you have lost your nerve. They think you are afraid to fight." Laughed, it was not a happy sound. "Let them think what they want." "I do not think that," said. "I think you are doing something harder than fighting. I think you are waiting." Waiting is easy. Stood up and walked to her small window. Stars filled the view, cold and distant. Watching people die while you do nothing is not easy. It is the hardest thing I have ever done. Every time they attack, I want to charge in and kill as many as I can. I want to save just one person, just one life. Then why do you not? Because one life is not enough. Turned to face. Her eyes were dark and determined. There are monsters in the galaxy, Sergeant. Real monsters that eat people alive. They have been doing this for thousands of years. If we do not stop them completely, they will keep doing it forever. 100 people saved today means nothing if 10,000 die next year. Nodded slowly. You are going to destroy them, all of them. Yes, his voice was quiet but hard as iron. Every single one. On the 43rd day, they finally went home. Their ships gathered at the edge of a dead star system. The star itself was old and red, slowly dying in the cold of space. Around it floated thousands of asteroids, rocks the size of mountains spinning in eternal darkness. And hidden among those rocks was something massive. The nest. It was built into the largest asteroids, tunneled through stone and metal over centuries. Thousands of ships floated around it like bees around a hive. The scanners on the ironclad counted them carefully. 300 warships, 200 transport vessels, support craft too numerous to track. And at the center of the nest, protected by layers of rock and steel, were the holding pens, the prisoners. "Life signs," reported. His voice was shaking again, but this time with hope. "Thousands of them, multiple species. They are keeping them alive, Captain. They are keeping them fresh." They did not kill all their prey at once. They stored them. They fed on them slowly over time. It was efficient. It was horrible. And it meant that some of the people taken from the singing dawn might still be alive. Looked at the massive nest on her screen. 3 ships against 300. It was impossible. Even humans could not win those odds, but they did not need to win. They just needed to report. "Open a channel to Earth Command," she ordered. "Priority Alpha, direct to Fleet Admiral." The message took 2 hours to reach Earth and 2 more hours for the response to come back. When it did, it was short and simple. The response was one word: authorized. Smiled. It was a cold smile, the smile of a predator who had finally found its prey. She turned to her crew. "The 7th Fleet is coming," she said. 42 warships, 8 carriers, 2 planet crackers. They will be here in 12 days. The bridge erupted in cheers. After 6 weeks of watching and waiting, after seeing so much death and doing nothing, they finally had a chance to fight back. They finally had a chance to save the people in those holding pens. But more than that, they had a chance to send a message to thee and to every other predator in the galaxy. A message that said humans were not prey. A message that said when someone screamed for help, the Death World apes would answer. And there would be no mercy. The 7th Human Expeditionary Fleet arrived in 3 waves. First came the scouts, small and fast ships that spread out around the nest like a net. They mapped every asteroid, every ship, every tunnel in the rock. They found the weak points in the defenses. They counted the enemies and marked the targets. Then came the warships, 42 destroyers and cruisers arranged in battle formation. Their weapons were hot and ready. Their crews were hungry for revenge. They had seen the pictures from the Singing Dawn. They had read the reports about the mining outpost and the refugee convoy. They knew what they were. They knew what needed to be done. Finally came the heavy ships, 8 carriers full of fighter craft and boarding shuttles. And behind them, moving slow and terrible through the dark, came the planet crackers. These were the biggest weapons humanity had ever built. They were designed to break worlds apart. They had never been used in war before. Today they would be. Admiral stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Unbroken. He was 73 years old, with white hair and a face like carved stone. He had fought in more battles than most people could count. He had never lost. "Captain," he said over the communication link, "your ships will lead the first attack. You found these monsters. You earned the right to draw first blood." Bowed her head in respect. "Thank you, Admiral. We will not let you down." The battle began at dawn, or what passed for dawn in that dead system. The human ships moved forward in perfect formation. They saw them coming and rose to meet them. 300 alien vessels poured out of the nest like angry insects, their weapons charging, their hunger burning. The first clash was violent and fast. Human weapons fired in bright lines of light. Ships exploded in balls of fire and organic matter. But they were not helpless. Their weapons were strange, shooting clouds of acid and living missiles that ate through metal. Human ships began to fall. The ironclad took a hit on its left side. Fire burst through the corridors. Emergency doors slammed shut. Crew members screamed and died. Captain held her chair as the ship shook around her. "Damage report," she shouted. "We lost Engine 2, Commander reported. 20 crew dead, but we can still fight, Captain." "Then keep fighting." The battle spread across the asteroid field. Ships twisted and turned between the rocks, firing at each other, crashing into stone. The darkness lit up with explosions. The silence of space was filled with the radio chatter of dying soldiers. Sergeant led the boarding parties. Her job was the hardest of all. While the warships fought outside, she and her Marines had to break into the nest and rescue the prisoners. They flew through the battle in small shuttles, dodging weapons fire, heading for the holding pens. The shuttle crashed through the wall of an asteroid, and her team jumped out before it stopped moving. They were inside the nest now. The air was thick and wet. The walls were covered with something that looked like skin. The smell was terrible, the smell of death and rot and old blood. "Move fast," ordered. "Kill everything that moves." The warriors came at them in waves. They were tall and thin, with bodies like insects and mouths full of sharp teeth. They screamed as they attacked, a sound that cut through the human helmets and made their blood run cold. His rifle barked fire. The first fell, then the second, then the 10th. Her Marines fought beside her, their weapons never stopping. Bodies piled up in the tunnels. Human and blood mixed on the floor. Half her team died in the first hour, then more in the second, but they kept pushing forward. They followed the life signs on their scanners. They followed the sounds of screaming prisoners. They found the holding pens at the center of the nest. Thousands of cages filled with people from a dozen different species, and in others that did not recognize. They were thin and weak and terrified. Some of them were missing limbs. All of them had the look of prey that had given up hope. "We are here to rescue you," said through her speaker. Her voice was broadcast in the universal trade language. "We are human. We came to take you home." The prisoners stared at her. They did not understand. No one came to rescue prey from no one was that brave or that crazy. "Get the shuttles in here," ordered her team. "Start loading people. We do not have much time." The extraction took 3 hours. Warriors kept attacking. The Marines kept dying, but the shuttles kept coming, filling with survivors, flying back to the carriers. 2,000 prisoners were saved that day. 2,000 lives pulled from the jaws of monsters. When the last shuttle was clear, received a message from Admiral. It was simple: "Get out now." She did not need to be told twice. The Marines retreated to their remaining shuttles. They flew away from the nest as fast as their engines could carry them. Behind them, they were regrouping. They thought they had won. They thought the humans were running away. They were wrong. The planet crackers fired. Two beams of pure energy, hotter than any star, struck the asteroid field. The rocks began to glow. Then they began to crack. Then they began to explode. The nest shattered like glass. The asteroids around it broke apart and crashed into each other. Fire spread through the tunnels and the chambers and the breeding pools. 80,000 died in the first second. The rest died in the minutes that followed. Admiral watched from the bridge of the Unbroken. His face showed no emotion, no joy, no regret, only the cold satisfaction of a job completed. "No survivors," he said quietly, "no mercy." The asteroid field became a tomb. Spinning rocks and frozen bodies filled the space where the nest had been. The collective was destroyed. Every warrior, every drone, every queen, every egg that would never hatch. It was over. Captain sat in her damaged chair on the broken bridge of the ironclad. She was bleeding from a cut on her head. Her hands were burned. Her ship was barely holding together. But she was smiling. "We did it," Lieutenant said. His voice was full of wonder. "We actually did it." "Yes," said, "we did." The human fleet gathered its wounded and counted its dead. 37 ships destroyed. 8,000 soldiers lost. It was a heavy price. But they were gone, and 2,000 prisoners were safe in the carriers, being fed and healed and told that the nightmare was over. It was worth it, every drop of blood, every lost life, it was worth it. 3 weeks after the battle, they came to Earth. Their ship was beautiful, a graceful vessel that looked like it was made of light and music. It landed in the great plaza of New Seoul, where the United Earth Council held its meetings. Millions of people watched, either in person or through screens across the world. Everyone wanted to see what would happen. They had hated humans for decades. They had called humanity dangerous animals. They had closed their borders and refused all contact. Now they were here, walking on human ground, asking for an audience. Ambassador Myra was the leader of the delegation. She was a survivor from the Singing Dawn sister ship, one of the few who had escaped the attack. Her skin glowed with soft blue light, and her 4 arms moved gracefully as she walked. But her eyes were heavy with something that looked like shame. The council chamber was large and round. Representatives from every human nation sat in a great circle. At the center was Counselor, the senior diplomat of Earth. She was an old woman with kind eyes and a sharp mind. She had negotiated with 100 species over her long career. She waited calmly as they entered. Myra stopped in the center of the chamber. For a long moment, she said nothing. She just looked at the humans around her. Then she bowed, lowering all 4 arms to the floor in the deepest sign of respect her species knew. "We came to apologize," she said. Her voice was translated by machines, but the emotion in it was real. "For 30 years, we called you monsters. We said you were too dangerous to be part of civilized space. We closed our borders because we were afraid of you." The chamber was silent. Everyone watched. Everyone listened. "We were right," Myra continued. "You are monsters." Some of the council members stirred, surprised by her words. But Myra was not finished. "You crossed into our space without permission. You risked war to answer a distress signal from people who had rejected you. You tracked them for 6 weeks, watching them kill and feed, waiting for the right moment. And when that moment came, you destroyed them completely, every single one. No survivors, no mercy." Myra lifted her head. Her glowing skin flickered with complex patterns that no human could read. "That is what monsters do. That is what predators do. We never understood because we never had predators on our world. We evolved in safety and peace. We thought that made us better than you." She took a step closer to Counselor. "We were wrong. We were not better. We were just lucky. And when our luck ran out, when real monsters came for us, we could do nothing but scream and die." Myra's voice broke. Her 4 hands trembled at her sides. "You answered our scream. You came when no one else would. You saved 2,000 of our people from a fate worse than death. And you did it knowing that we would probably never thank you. You did it knowing that we had treated you like animals." She bowed again, even lower than before. "The Dominion formally requests alliance with the United Earth government. We offer our technology, our trade routes, our knowledge of the galaxy, everything we have. In exchange, we ask only one thing." Counselor leaned forward. "Name it." "When the next signal comes, and it will come, answer it." Myra looked up with eyes full of tears that glowed like liquid stars. "Answer it the way you answered ours. The galaxy is dark and full of predators, but now those predators know something they never knew before." She turned to face the cameras. Her words would be broadcast across known space. Every species, every world, every creature hiding in the dark would hear what she said next. "They know that when prey screams, the answer. They know that humans do not forget. They know that humans do not forgive. And they know that if they hunt the innocent, the death world apes will come for them." Her voice grew stronger. "There will be no survivors. There will be no mercy. There will only be fire and blood and the end of everything they are." The chamber erupted in applause. Humans stood and cheered. Some were crying, some were laughing. All of them understood what this moment meant. Humanity was no longer alone. Humanity was no longer feared. Humanity was needed. Counselor stood and took Myra's upper hands in her own. "The alliance is accepted," she said. "And I make you this promise. As long as humans draw breath, we will answer every call. We will fight every monster. We will protect every innocent creature who asks for our help." She smiled, and there was something fierce in that smile. That is what Death World apes do. Far away on the damaged bridge of the Ironclad, Captain watched the broadcast with her surviving crew. They were back in human space now, heading for repair docks. The ship was broken but still flying. The crew was tired but still proud. Lieutenant stood beside. "Do you think it will make a difference?" he asked. "The alliance, the message, all of it." Thought about the question. She thought about the 43 dead on the Singing Dawn. She thought about the miners and the refugees and all the others they could not save. She thought about Sargent, who was still in the medical bay, recovering from wounds that almost killed her. "Yes," she said finally, "it will make a difference, not because of politics or alliances, because now the galaxy knows the truth about us." What truth? Looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, other predators were watching. Other monsters were waiting. They had heard the message. They had seen what happened to the... That we are not the good guys, said. We are not heroes from stories. We are something much more dangerous. We are the species that survived a death world. We are the species that learned to hunt by being hunted. We are the species that will cross any line, break any rule, and burn any world to protect the people who call for our help. She turned to face her crew. They were watching her with tired eyes and grateful hearts. They had followed her into forbidden space and through fire. They would follow her again. We are monsters, said, but we are the galaxy's monsters now, and that means something. That means no one has to face the dark alone anymore. The ironclad limped toward home. Behind it, the stars kept burning in the endless night. And somewhere in that night, on 1,000 different worlds, creatures who had lived in fear looked up at those stars and felt something new. They felt hope. Because they were watching, they were listening, and if the monsters ever came again, they would answer. No survivors. No mercy. Only the promise of fire.